Hey class, we are going to talk about domain and range for continuous relationships. So yesterday we did discrete relationships. That was where we just had points. Continuous means that there is a line or a curve or something that continues on and on. So let's look at the domain and range. So go ahead and label page 34, domain and range continuous. And we are going to write 4 things up at the top, different ways to represent domain and range. So the first one is, because we're going to put this right here, so I need a little bit of room up here. So you can do an arrow, if there's an arrow on both ends, so an arrow and an arrow. Then it is going to be all real numbers. And we can represent that with an R like that. Okay. Then the next thing is, let's say you have a point on the left side and then an arrow on the right. Then your domain is going to be X is greater than a number, and your range will be Y is greater than or equal to a number. And it could also be just greater than or just greater than. So you don't have to have the or equal to. So remember the or equal to is if it's a closed dot. So if it's an open dot, you'll not have the or equal to. Okay. The other way is, let's say I have an arrow on the minimum and it goes to a point. Then your domain is going to be X is less than or equal to a number, and your range is Y is less than or equal to a number. And then the last type is where we have a point on both the minimum and the maximum. So your domain is between 2 points. The left side's a number, the right side's a number. So this is going to look like, it's called a compound inequality, where you have a number on each side, X in the middle, and then less than or equal to on both sides. Range is going to be a number less than or equal to Y, less than or equal to another number. So these are 4 ways that you will represent the domain and range for continuous. Okay, so let's look at our foldable now. So domain and range for continuous relationships. Remember, less than or equal to is that symbol. And then greater than or equal to is that symbol. Sometimes you will have open dots. And so it'll just be less than or just greater than. We don't have any on this one though. Okay, so let's look at our domain. So domain, remember domain is your x's. So I'm going to put x to help us remember. Range is our y's. So for our domain, we're looking at on the x-axis, it goes from where to where. So it's like it goes from here to here. So that means it's between 2 locations. It's between, okay, so here is the origin, so it's -1, -2, -3, -4. And then it goes to 1, 2, 3. So our domain goes from -4 to 3. It stops there. So domain is -4 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3. Then our range is the y-axis. Let me get a different color. So this is our y-axis. So we're going to see what's the maximum and what's the minimum. So the minimum is -3. The maximum is +3. So then our range goes from -3 to +3. And then the last thing we're checking, is it a function? So you can use your vertical line test and see that it is not a function. So no, because that's hard to see. It fails the vertical line test. All right, so let's go on to number 2. So domain is our x's. So we're looking to see from left to right. We have an arrow here, and we have an arrow here. So looking back up at the top, we have an arrow, so that means all real numbers. So domain is all real numbers. And then range, it's an arrow. It's going to continue to go on and on forever, both directions. So this is all real numbers also. Is it a function? Yes, because it passes the vertical line test. I'm just going to abbreviate vertical line test. And this is actually one of our first functions that we're going to deal with. This is actually a linear function because it makes a line. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have domain. So we're looking at our x-axis left to right. So this has an arrow going that way and an arrow going that way. So we can't really close it off because it's going to keep on going on and on forever. So our domain is all real numbers. And then our range, let's look at our y-axis. Is there a minimum? Yeah, minimum's right there at -2. And then is there a maximum? No, because the arrows go on and on forever. So whenever it's a point and then an arrow, that is where y is greater than or equal to whatever that number is. So that means y is greater than or equal to -2. Okay, is it a function? Well, let's check and see. Yes, it is a function. Because it passes the vertical line test. And this is actually called an absolute value function. Okay, let's keep on going. Okay, so let's look at domain. Domain is x's, so from left to right. So going left, there's no minimum. It keeps on going on and on forever. It's an arrow. And right, it goes on and on forever. So arrow means all real numbers. And then the range is our y-axis. So let's see, is there a minimum? Yeah, that's our minimum. And then it has arrows. So it's a point and an arrow. So our minimum is a point, and then it's an arrow. So that means the range is y is greater than or equal to -2, because the only values for the y values are -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and so on. And then, is it a function? Well, let's try the vertical line test. Looks like it passes to me. So yes, because it passes the vertical line test. Okay, number 5. Let's keep on rolling through these. Domain. Domain is our x's. So going from left to right, what do you notice? This has an arrow, so it's going to keep on going, okay, in the same pattern. So x's, it has arrows. It's going to keep on going. So domain is all real numbers. Range. So let's look and see. Range is our y values. So what is the lowest y value? So it's right there. And the highest y value is right there. Everything falls within these 2 points. So this is -2, and this is +2. So then our range is from -2 to +2. So this is our compound inequality. X is less than 2, and -2 is less than y. Is it a function? So looks like it's a function to me. It passes the vertical line test. Okay, let's look at number 6. We have domain as our axis. So x-axis looks like the furthest it goes out are these two. So that's -1, -2, -3. And this is 1, 2, 3, +3. So the furthest it goes out is -3 here. And the maximum is +3. So this is where you put x in the middle. -3 is the smallest. 3 is the biggest. Less than or equal. Less than equal. Okay. And then our range is our y-axis. So what's the highest? And what's the lowest? The lowest is -1, -2, -3, -4. Highest is 1, 2, 3, 4. So our range is between -4 and +4. Is it a function? Well, let's look. Uh-oh. It's twice. So it is not a function. So it fails the vertical line test. Okay, number 7. We have the x-axis for domain. So let's see, what's the minimum? Looks like it goes to, what is that? -2. And then there is no maximum for x because it's going to keep on going on and on. So that means that it's a point and then an arrow. So remember this, point and then arrow. So x is greater than or equal to a number. So that number is -2. X greater than or equal to -2. And then y, so our y-axis, let's see, what's the minimum? This is an arrow, so it's going to keep on going down, down, down. So that's going to go on and on forever. And then going up, the maximum, this is going to keep on going on and on forever. So it doesn't have a minimum or maximum. So it's arrow and arrow, making it all real numbers. Okay, so let's look at vertical line test. It does not pass, it fails. So this is not a function. Oh, fails. Vertical line test. Okay, the next one. Here's our x-axis, y-axis. Oh, and our function, our relationship is a vertical line. A lot of us get confused on vertical and horizontal. So domain x, the only value for x is 2. That's the only value. No matter where you're at on this vertical line, x equals 2. The range, there's an arrow pointing up on range, so we can't find the minimum, and there's an arrow going down, so it's all real numbers. And then, is it a function? Well, let's do the vertical line test. It passes through the whole thing. So this is a no, it fails. It's not a function. Okay, and then the last one. X, Y domain. Can we find the minimum or maximum of this? No, because there's arrows going both ways. So that means it's all real numbers. And then the range, the only value for Y is all of these, which is 1, 2, 3, -3. So it's Y equals -3. Is this a function? Well, let's do the vertical line test. Looks good to me. So yes. Because it passes the vertical line test. Okay, so make sure to glue this in. If you need to cut off a little bit of it to fit it underneath that, you can. So I'm actually going to trim it a little bit so that I have enough space to put it right here. Okay, so we have finished the notes. So your assignment is this, worksheet 4.1, relations and functions. So you're asked to determine if the following relations are functions, then state the domain and range. Okay, so use your notes from today and the notes from yesterday to complete this. It is due by the end of class today.